All right, now has come the time to start finishing up our first assignment. So I'm coming in on a Monday. I want to make sure my desktop's nice and clear, everything's organized. And then I'm looking in my digital folder. And depending on how you've organized your assignment 1 content, you are going to look for your PSD file. So right now it looks like a little puzzle with a lot of space around it, maybe gray space, if you set it up the way I did. Because we're starting to finish it off now, we don't need all that empty gray space anymore. And pixels take up content. They take up memory. They take up processing. So the first thing I'm going to do today is to crop down. Remember, my goal was to fill in as much of the white space as I could so that my sketch wasn't showing through. And now what I can do is use guides using the Move tool, clicking on the rulers at the side, and not really worried about my sketch. I want to find my own composition. By building the box here. This doesn't mean that everything is perfect within this, but it will get you started. All right, so once you have that box, you can go ahead and use the crop tool. Make sure everything is empty in the settings and that it says ratio here instead of a fixed position. And that will give you full control. If you need to clear these out, just click the clear button. And then your crop will stick to the guides that you gave. And crop gives you the option as well of rotating, should you want to. Or shrinking it down a little bit, like maybe I'll rotate it just a little bit more. And then hold down Shift and drag from a corner, and you can shrink it or enlarge it without losing content. With keeping the same proportions. So maybe I actually want that. Then when you're happy with it, hit return. And again, it does not need to match your original sketch. This is now informed by your sketch, but largely using the reference that you have. You can turn off your guides by hitting Command semicolon. You can turn them off and on that way. Now that immediately took my memory down from more than half a gig to only about 300 megabytes with all these layers, and only about 30 megabytes when it's flattened. So not bad. So this is much more workable, and now I'm really focused on kind of finishing it off, seaming the pieces together. So this is where it gets a little tricky because you have to look through, and I have my reading glasses on. I can be really particular. And you have to be aware of what layers are doing what and how best to blend things together. I'm going to use a lower opacity soft eraser here. Blend out some of this background. The low opacity helps blend the colors together, not just the content. And we'll get better and better at this with practice. So it's starting to recede and change color in a more believable way now. All right. See, I got to figure out what layer all these little splatters are on. You can do that just by turning them off and on. There we are, it's on this layer. And I can erase those away as well. Blend them in. Now, not everything has to be perfect. It's a mistake of kind of the first generation of digital compositing artists. You know, if you think of the Star Wars prequels or the Matrix sequel movies, if you ever saw those, where they were really ambitious in how much they composited, and they really pushed the art form forward, but they also made the mistake of thinking that every film frame needed to look perfect. And the problem with that, and I remember this from kind of the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie, when you pause it, all the live actors and all the real elements look strange and bizarre and awkward, like you would if you were paused at any time in a movie. But the animated character, like the Scooby-Doo character, looks perfect. You know, no matter where you pause it, he's always in a pose that's very believable and not awkward. And that actually takes away from the believability of the overall movie. So imperfection is part of the illusion as well. And we'll get used to that. In fact, today, to finish this off, I'm going to be doing a lot to intentionally kind of mess with everything equally. And that's going to help the overall believability of the scene. It will help kind of blend colors together. Not everything needs to be shown like it was in those first Star Wars or those Star Wars prequels, you know, with bright sunlight. We can put some bad weather in there, and that will help tie things together. Different mood, dark shadows, things like that. All right. So I'm going to go through and work on the major edges. Now with digital art, the big downside of being able to edit everything and not lose any data and always be able to undo is that you can just end up working forever. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm choosing my battles, and I'm trying to make the biggest impact I can within a certain amount of time. So I am only going to give myself the remainder of this demo. So about another 6 minutes to blend the problematic areas. And that's because we can return to this project, and we will be returning to this project in assignment 3 once we've gotten a little bit more practice and skill matching textures. And we'll be able to make further corrections then with a new informed purpose. See how just by erasing it with a really low opacity, I'm not just changing the texture very subtly, but I'm mostly changing the color, so it feels like a more believable transition, even though I'm using content from multiple layers. And I actually like how the foreground layer is a little bit soft in focus. It makes it look like we're looking past it. Where the middle ground is where I really want a lot of the focus to be. But for the most flexibility, you would have just strong focus everywhere, because then you can selectively zoom in or out. All right, so there's little bits that bug me. I don't like this little green sliver in the corner here. So how can I fix that? I take that layer and I simply transform it, Command T, and then just maybe warp it. It's an organic element. Push it out a little bit. Once you crop, the problem is you do lose the content outside of the crop. So if you're not sure of all your placements, you want to hold off on cropping until you are sure. But But it does save a lot of memory for you. Okay, this is looking good, but I see a little artifact. You have to be careful of these little digital artifacts that get lost in there. Whoops. And you got to be careful of moving them as well. And again, I'm choosing my battles, finding where the most significant seams need to be blended, made more believable. I want this to look like an outcropping in the foreground, but I don't need all of this color exactly as it is. So I'm going to knock that back a little by letting more of that background come through. And the further back, the more I take away, so that the eye is led back. All right, now this is just, I had high ambitions for it. It's in the background, but it's too soft as it is. So at this point too, you might decide to bring in new reference. So if I open up my digital, my assignment 1, my reference in particular, I wanted this to feel more like an alien world. So I pulled some images from the Hubble Space Telescope, which is public domain. Thank you very much. Found a great planet. This is an actual photo. I think it's been enhanced. This was from NASA for us. So I'm going to bring that in. Just drag and drop. See how nice and high res it is. Instantly changes my scene. Whoops. Definitely want to hold down Shift when I'm doing planets. And I want to use the lighting of that one source, but I want to have this planet be kind of more dominant in there. Somewhere. Maybe I'll use that as a sun and I'll do the planet over here. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to select out just that planetary body and maybe some of those stars. So first I need to rasterize it. And then I'm going to use Magic Wand with contiguous turned on at 32. And 32 is a little bit too strong. So I'm going to do like 12. Try that again. Command D to deselect. Select again. That looks pretty good. Delete all of that. You see what it gives me? These little halos. Now I can select the empty space, and I'm going to do what, this is new for us, what's called a refine an edge. Because I know these planets are far away, they're soft. So if I click refine edge, I can actually feather it. I can soften it, and I can shift the edge so it grows a little bit. And I can smooth it out where it's bumpy. And it's going to remember these settings, and I'm going to see if they work. And it kind of previews it for me. So you see it's cutting into the black, but maybe not quite enough yet. But if I hit delete, it will start deleting it away. Do it one more time. Hit refine edge again. It will remember my settings. So it will do it even a little bit more. Soften it a little bit more. Delete away a little bit more. And I can do it again. Because this isn't a perfect circle. That's why I can't just cut it out as a circle. I can even push it a little bit further. There we go. You can see how that will get rid of all those black edges for me. Okay, so now I have this planet. How do I make it look more believable? Well, I just put atmosphere between it and everything else, and that's going to be with transparency. So it's going to be hovering somewhere in here. I might even want to rotate it.